morning. Welcome to Chamber Chatter on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. My name is Mark Snider, and we are coming to you today through the wonders of Zoom technology. Chamber Chatter is a monthly roundtable discussion with today's Long Island business leaders and has been underwritten by MapTunes, Long Island Chamber Maps. My three guests with me this morning: Debbie Greco, the newly anointed president of the Port Washington Chamber of Commerce in the town of North Hempstead; Joe Garcia, president of the Farmingdale Chamber of Commerce in the town of Oyster Bay; and Brian Croutier, president of the Rockville Center Chamber of Commerce in the town of Hempstead. Joe, Debbie, and Brian, thank you for taking time from your busy schedules to join us today on Chamber Chatter.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I'd like to start the program by having each one of you talk about the towns that you represent. And I'd like to point out that I specifically chose these three chambers today as they represent the three townships that make up Nassau County. Joe, welcome back to Chamber Chatter.
Thank you.
What do you want our listeners to know about Farmingdale right now?
Farmingdale has been a beacon of central Nassau and straddling the border of Suffolk County, heavily filled by different types of entertainment, bars, restaurants, amusement. Farmingdale's been rocking, and of course now we have a little bit of a new challenge post-COVID and with recovery. But luckily, the village of Farmingdale, the town of Oyster Bay officials, everybody seems to understand the challenges ahead, and we hope Farmingdale could be a leader in bringing back the island.
When you say Farmingdale's been rocking, what do you mean by that?
If you would have came to Main Street about 5 years ago, you would have noticed that a lot of storefronts were vacant. We had some new restaurants opening, and it really was about when things really started to blossom. When you come to our downtown area, Main Street, where we were fully occupied, we were exciting. People would come here and leave saying, wow, what an amazing town, which was really a major shift from years past. And business was good. Everybody, that old adage about the rising tide rises all boats, everybody seemed to be doing well and better every year. So we hope that'll continue as we recover, after the COVID issues we're facing.
Now, I know Farmingdale actually is made up of a number of different communities. Certainly you have the village, but you also have East Farmingdale, which technically resides in Suffolk County. You have South Farmingdale. What's the vibe right now if I'm walking down Main Street?
It's hopeful. I think that's the vibe I believe you'll get. Most of our restaurants, in fact, I believe all our restaurants did reopen and are open and operating now. Really led by some of the more creative members and some of the things they were doing. And I'm sure we stole some ideas from other towns with different delivery and to-go options. Our coffee shop is rocking. Our brewery is doing really well. So we have a lot of companies that seem to be hanging on, and we have a lot of companies that are thriving. So some of our other types of businesses on Main Street, unfortunately, did close. We have some vacancies now on Main Street, but at least one of those has been opened by a business that relocated to Main Street. So it's hopeful, and we just hope we don't have to do another shutdown, because I think most business people understand it's amazing we got through that one. I don't know that another one would be so easy.
Okay, thank you. All right, Debbie, you've been president of the Port Washington Chamber for less than a month, right? Couple of weeks?
It's just, it's like 17 days now, not even 13 days. But I've been on their board it's nearly 20 years.
Yes.
And
I did my homework on you. I did know that. But congratulations on taking over as president. You're filling some tough shoes.
I know.
But
thank God Mitch is staying on the board, so he'll still be involved, and that's a great thing, because he's wonderful. I mean, he gave 10 years as board president, and and they are tough shoes to fill, but I'm going to do my best.
Okay.
And Port Washington has always been a resilient community. I've been here all my life. I'm actually third generation in Port Washington, and the community for 35,000 people with the unincorporated area and all of the villages it's really such a small community in a sense, because the businesses and the residents all kind of work together. There are a lot of charity events that go on, and the businesses are very generous, even though they're like, they know it's what they need to do, and the residents support that. I've always supported the businesses, but I feel like it's never proven so much as it has with this COVID outbreak. Through social media has been booming with let's get out and support the restaurants, and everybody has been so generous to the outreach facilities, and even the restaurants have been they're hard hit, and yet they're still delivering trays of food to the poor areas, and so that part has been terrific. And the businesses are coming back. So far, we've only heard of 4 businesses that are going out. No restaurants yet. I'm surprised. Well, I'm not surprised, because I feel as though the restaurants of all of the businesses, they were able to stay open through all of this. And, and a lot of them had special menus, special discount menus, and so on. So, and now they're being very creative with outdoor dining in wherever they can. And actually the town has started a program, and I've already forgotten what it's called, and it's called Lift Up Local. And we're the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Improvement District in the town, and then also another organization are getting together soon to talk about what we can do to and obviously the police have to be involved to block off entire blocks of Main Street to traffic, and have some of the businesses bring their product out onto the street, so it becomes almost like a street fair, block by block. So that's kind of an interesting thing that we're all doing. And it's always been a relatively thriving Main Street. We have about 70 restaurants. Every time my husband tells somebody how many restaurants we have, it goes up by 10. But, we have a lot of restaurants, and so they've all been doing well, thank God. And all of the other businesses, for the most part, are pulling along. And again, because we have such a supportive community, I'm very optimistic that will continue.
The 3 chambers that we have on today all have thriving restaurant communities. But I will say that Port Washington is a town I know very little about. I know a lot about a lot of towns, but Port Washington, I probably need to spend a little more time in. But
you have to come and visit.
Like a beautiful community.
Yeah, and then also because we're on the water, and my husband was a school teacher and actually taught me how to sail. That's how we met. And so we're sailing a lot, because it's the one place you can be and not, and be as socially distant as possible. And people are out on the water and having a great time. So it's great.
Okay. Thank you for the update. Brian, as president of the mighty Rockville Center Chamber of Commerce, what can you tell us about life in your South Shore hamlet?
So the village of Rockville Center has been extremely resilient. The business owners have reacted pretty much exactly how we thought they would. They have done everything possible to stay in business, and whether it was takeout, gift cards, the chamber was there to help them do whatever we could. And the support from the people in town for the restaurants, all the businesses, has been phenomenal. And, they support us through the years with all of the different ads and sponsorships and things that they do for fundraisers that, we all hold, whether it's a golf tournament or, some charity in town. There's so many, if you ask the business owner during the course of a regular year how many days someone walks in and says, hey, we're running an event, can you help us? They'd probably say every day. And they're always there to help us, and the village has responded much in kind to support the businesses. And I myself have worked with the mayor and the deputy mayor to try to help our business owners work through this. So I haven't heard of a lot of businesses going out, very few so far, and I hope that continues. So We're just looking to get through this next, couple of months. I think the businesses on Long Island and in our hometowns are going to thrive this summer because a lot of people aren't going away. They're spending money on their homes, and I believe that they're going to be spending money in town because they are staying home. They're going to be around. They're going to most summers, the town empties out and people are going to Montauk and Saratoga and doing weekend trips, and I don't think you're going to see that much. And I think that the businesses in town will thrive this summer, and that's my hope.
That's an excellent observation. That's something I hadn't thought about, but I could see right here in my hometown of Massapequa that, my neighbors, myself, my family, we're staying put, and you're right, we are supporting the local businesses. So good observation. But as we get through the summer and into the fall, into September, we touch on a very hot topic, and that's the reopening of schools on Long Island. Our politicians are at odds at how best to accomplish this or not accomplish it at all. Joe, back to you for a second here. What's your position on the reopening of the schools? What are you thinking?
I'm glad I don't have an official decision to make. It is easier, and as a chamber president, we all know it's always easier to have an opinion on things that you're not actually responsible for. I have a child who'll be going into first grade next year. His kindergarten year was cut short, and we saw his education, frankly, stop once the video and virtual learning started. So I think it is really important to get the kids back into school in a way, of course, that's safe. I think it can be done. I wish there was a little more debate on how to do it. I believe there's some really good ideas out in the communities, and schools work best when the community has the ability to decide how to educate their own children. So I just wish and hope the state will be a little open to some of the ideas. I think with social distancing, it's important to get the schools back open. If it's important enough to spend billions and billions of dollars on, it's important enough to have. And we need to focus on what we can do to get kids into school instead of what we can't. Obviously, what school looked like a year or two ago can't happen this year. It's got to be different. But we can focus on what to do. My wife's an educator. She's a third grade teacher for years. And I think there are ways, but missing from the conversation, unfortunately, is how to protect the staff in the schools along with the teachers. But my position is, look, for the economy, it's important, but that can't be the driving force. It's got to be a decision to get the schools open because it's important to have schools. And if we can't educate our kids, what are we all doing here?
Okay. Debbie, have you or the chamber taken a position on the reopening of schools in Port Washington?
We haven't directly, no. I totally agree with everything that Joe is saying. To open the schools, I think I agree is important for a lot of different reasons. Socially is one of the key ones. And as far as your point about learning, a friend has two children in second grade and fourth grade. This fourth grade student, they were both very good students, both did well, but the fourth grader was done at 11 o'clock in the morning because the teacher just assigned them work, didn't do any real teaching, and she was done. And the second grader was going to school from 8:30 in the morning till 3 o'clock, and then had 3 hours worth of homework. So there was too much disparity between, and that's on the educators themselves. So there needs to be uniformity, but also the type of governance that exists when they're teaching in the classroom. So there's a lot of that. And then the distance learning, I think, can work part-time. So I think my personal feeling is the breaking up of, some in class, spreading them out, and then have some of them learning from home. The issue there is the parents that both work and, having to be home for the children when they are at home. And it's a big issue, but we do need to get them back into the school, but do it in a safe way. And I agree with Joe that it's, I'm glad I don't have to really make that decision. We have a very good superintendent, a new one, and he's very good. So I'm hoping that they and the school board and parents who would always have very strong opinions, that will all be just fine. I'm hoping that it works out.
Okay. Brian, in addition to a large public school system, like Farmingdale, Rockville Center is also home to a college, Malloy. Have you given any thought to the reopening of the schools?
Yeah, of course. It's what makes villages so strong is the strength of the school system. So I see it. My wife is a special education teacher as well. I think that they're probably going to have to do some sort of odd day, even day, where half the freshman and junior class are going on Monday and Wednesday, and the sophomore and senior class are going on, Tuesday and Thursday. And then the other days they're doing virtual learning, with a day in between to clean. That's kind of one of the theories I've heard, and that makes sense to me. And, the other big conversation, of course, is, all the extracurricular activities after school, whether it be art, the theater, the movie, musicians, and sports. So there's a lot of different things that have to be addressed. But, the most important is to at least get the kids back into some sort of system of going to school, right? So if it has to be only 2 or 3 days a week, I would prefer that over just virtual learning. My son is going into his senior year of high school at Southside, and even for him, and I can only imagine for every grade and every age, the virtual learning is very difficult. It's not an easy. It's just it's hard on the kids, it's hard on parents, and it's hard on teachers. So the more we can get them in a classroom, the better. So hopefully we can work with our leaders to make that happen.
All right. Good feedback, all three of you. Thank you. When we return, more on the reopening of Nassau County. And we're also going to have some fun playing Genie in the Bottle with our guests. We're going to find out what 3 wishes they have for their Chamber of Commerce. This is Chamber Chatter on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. Welcome back to Chamber Chatter on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. I'm Mark Snider. Chamber Chatter is a monthly roundtable discussion with today's Long Island business leaders and has been underwritten by MapTune's Long Island Chamber Maps and by the Mappers Shoppers Discount app. With over 2,500 discounts island-wide, download the MapTunes app. That's MAPTOONS. Or you can also visit shoppersdiscountcard.com. My 3 guests with me today: Debbie Greco, president of the Port Washington Chamber of Commerce; Joe Garcia, president of the Farmingdale Chamber of Commerce; and Brian Croutier, president of the Rockville Center Chamber of Commerce. We recently entered phase 4 of Long Island's reopening, but last month, Governor Cuomo removed all cinemas and gyms from the list without giving a timeline for when those businesses can resume. Presently, there are 19 movie theaters in Nassau County. All 3 of our towns represented here today have a movie theater in their community. There are 254 private sector fitness and recreational sports centers in Nassau, and plenty of them are in each of the towns represented here today. This is a very controversial subject, but one worth discussing. There was a $500 million class action lawsuit filed last week against New York State on behalf of hundreds of gyms, many of them right here on Long Island. Brian, you and I touched on this topic when we spoke the other day. Can you share your thoughts on this topic with our audience? Do you mind?
Sure. Yeah, it's very important for people to be able to work out, not just for their physical well-being, but also their mental well-being. And the gym owners in Rockville Center have done an amazing job of setting up plans so that people can come to the gyms and work out in a very socially responsible way. The amount of work that's gone into it from all the gym owners has been amazing. And my hope is that New York State, realizes how hard these people are working, how much money they're putting into their buildings. Sports set in Rockville Center, for example, Dennison has put in the UV lighting. He's he's upgraded his HVAC. He put in touchless doors. He's got touchless entry into the gym now, so that nothing's being touched, and eliminating hopefully spread of any germs. We also have the bowling alley in town. He's done Joe Laspina. He's done an amazing job trying to set up a plan so that he could open up. And we really need to help those businesses out because they're big facilities. They have large rents. They pay big taxes, and they need to be opened. And my hope is that we can get Laura Curran to get the governor to help these guys get open. So.
Okay. Debbie, not only do you have Soundview Cinemas in Port Washington, but you also have the wonderful Landmark on Main Street, Gene Rimsky Theater. Both of these have been closed for months. And you also have plenty of gyms and fitness locations in town. How about your thoughts on reopening?
I feel exactly the same way that Brian does. And, if they can open responsibly, and it sounds like the gym that Brian was referencing has done everything that they can do. More so the gyms, I feel like it's easier to do those types of like that kind of retrofit, like putting in the UV lights. Theaters, I feel like are in a different class on their own, because even if people are wearing masks there, I guess, I'm taking that back. Because I think that if the mask and the social distancing regulations are in place and people follow them, and I feel as though they have been for the most part on Long Island, and the indication that there's been one diagnosed case of coronavirus in Port Washington in 3 weeks. So it's, so clearly people are following the rules, and as long as that continues, I feel like it should be able to be done on a, I guess you can't do it on a town by town basis, but on a county by county basis. And I agree that we should be able to make that work.
Listen, we definitely have flattened the curve. There's no doubt. But that doesn't mean that you can, relax now. It basically means that we have room for you in the ICU.
Yeah, I agree. And well, we have room for you in the ICU, but the fact that I really expected once we got into definitely into phase 3, that there would be a slight tick up, but there hasn't been. And that's amazing because it's because people were all still aware that the virus is really still there. And for the most part, I don't go into, there's not a single place that I'd walk into where everyone's not wearing a mask. Now, when you walk along, along the road, and sometimes it's impossible to stay away, then, I have my mask on and a couple of people don't. But for the most part, everyone's being really, really cautious. And I think that we should be, it's not rewarded for it, but, not to be penalized because there may be other areas that aren't being as cautious as we are. We went through, it's because we went through something bad and we know it's not gone. We know it will continue. So I agree that it's been
very difficult to get everybody on the same page with this. I agree. But I think as a whole, Long Island has done a wonderful job. Yeah.
And actually, and as you said, you mentioned Landmark, that this Lift Up Local program that the town of North Hempstead has begun, that Landmark wants to do an outdoor. They happen to have a park right next to their buildings, a big park. So they can do tented things and things outside otherwise for now. And we're looking at that area being one of the first blocks that we do that, close the street and do an open thing with. So, slowly but surely we'll come back.
Okay. Joe, on to you. 2 big multiplex movie theaters on Route 110, an abundance of fitness and recreational centers in Farmingdale as well. Talk to me. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and they're draws, right? So what do you do before a movie? You go grab a bite to eat, or you stop at the, one of the stores nearby and do some shopping. So the Farmingdale is a big entertainment area, especially along the 110 corridor with arcades and movie theaters and I mean, Adventureland, one of the maybe the biggest amusement park in the region. So, you know, and when you get to gyms, I think you can't ignore. Look, we wish everything could open. I'd like to open everything up and, you know, snap my fingers and genie in a bottle, get rid of COVID. But we are going to be living with it for a while. So I think it's really important to always keep in mind, what can you open and how? Can gyms open? If they can't, let's find a way to either support these businesses while they're forced under a government mandate to be shut down now for, I mean, we're heading towards, it won't be 6 months before long. Can they move some of the operations to outdoors? Can they run outdoor classes? But there really is just this feeling of, after having these businesses make plans and adjustments, like my predecessor just mentioned, now, you know, they spent all that money to reopen, and now they have no idea when that'll be. So I think that, you know, there is a public health component to gyms, and there's a mental health component to going to a movie, going and enjoying yourself, having some fun, going bowling. You know, he mentioned Joe Laspina. He owns a bowling alley here in Farmingdale as well. And I mean, they came up with a plan that Disney may have copied. I mean, it really is a very comprehensive way of reopening. And I fear that we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Let's see how these places can open. We need the state to revisit these phases, and it's easy to say no, but they got to come back and look at what can you do. You know, I think just in general, the longer you leave people guessing when they're going to be able to reopen, if we have a reoccurrence, it's going to make it harder for compliance then, and it's going to make it harder for these types of businesses to stay open. And I you know, nobody's stopping them from having to pay their real estate taxes. They still have the bills coming in with no revenue, and I believe there are ways that you can reopen movie theaters, bowling alleys, gyms. Maybe not all of them. Maybe some could do it and some can't. But let's not just make a blanket no. Let's find what we can do.
Okay. You mentioned genie in a bottle, so your timing's good. We're going to lighten things up a little bit, have some fun. We're going to play genie in a bottle like we do every month. And this is where we find out what your 3 wishes are for the Chamber of Commerce. Brian, I lived in Rockville Center when I first got married. One of my favorite spots back then was the Village Green. So let's just say you're strolling along the green and lying in the grass. You see a lantern, you open it up, out pops a genie granting you 3 wishes for your chamber. What are they?
So my 3 wishes, my first wish is we have 2 big events that we run at the end of the summer. One is called Eat Shop Rock, and one is something that we instituted last year for the first time. It's called Playing on the Porch. And so we did, last year was the first annual Playing on the Porch. It was a huge success. And my wish is that this year we are able to run a socially responsible version of Eat Shop Rock, and also our second annual version of Playing on the Porch. So that's the first wish. The second wish, and this is to the topic we were just talking about, I really wish that we get all these businesses open. And, you know, we just talked about the gyms, the bowling alleys, the movie theaters. They're vital components of our business community. And so my wish would be that we can get them open as soon as possible in the most socially responsible way, and figure out, like Joe said, how to do it so that they can stay open. And because to me, that's the next step. That's a big wish of mine. And the last wish is that this summer is a thriving business community because of what we talked about earlier, which is people going in town, not just the restaurants and the bars, but all the local shops, all the boutiques. If you're going to buy something online, a lot of these businesses, you can shop online and purchase gift certificates online. So my wish is that, you know, when people are out and about, step into a store, support them. And that's a big wish, is not just the bars and restaurants, support all the businesses in town. And hopefully this summer, my wish is that they have one of the best summers ever.
Okay. Debbie, you're strolling down Main Street, checking on the local merchants, and you spotted a magic lantern on the sidewalk. You open it up, and the genie pops out, granting you your 3 wishes. You're a brand new president, so what will you wish for during your tenure?
My first one, we started doing a Port Washington Restaurant Week in October, and I'm hoping that we can still do that this year. I know it's going to be very different than it has been, but we participate. Some of our restaurants participate in Long Island Restaurant Week, but the Port Washington Business Improvement District has has Restaurant Week without charging the restaurants anything and paying for advertising and other marketing and so on. So that has been wonderful, and it would be terrific because everyone looks forward to that. And it's just there are about 25 restaurants that participate, and it would be terrific to keep that going because it's only going on for a couple of years now. So I know that everyone really looks forward to that, and I know the restaurants really do also. So it would be terrific if in some way we could keep that going. And another, which is it's a very simple one. We've already lost a few businesses to COVID, but I'm hoping that it remains very, very, very low. It amazes me that so many of them have been able to keep going, given that they had to pay their rent and still survive and so on. That and a lot of them have been using very unique ideas for staying open, and so it would be lovely to see just as very few, because we have some empty business storefronts anyway, but it would be great not to see any more, or to have new people coming in and with new ideas. And I hate to say this, but in a desperate situation like this, sometimes the best ideas and new entrepreneurs saying, you know what, nobody lives forever, and let's try some new things. So that would be terrific too. And I'd be looking forward to, as a chamber, to really be helping businesses with that as well. And another one is we have this, it's been a hashtag, it's been, so on of Shop Port. And also we have a holiday event that we say that, Shop Port, and that how much money stays in Port Washington if people buy local versus buying online or buying out of town and so on. And people have really embraced that. Even though a lot of stores were closed, they've been embracing it as much as they could during COVID to try to support the businesses and and help to keep them open. So I'm hoping that everyone just feels that way all the time. Once COVID is gone and everyone really, really, truly embraces the concept of Shop Port. We and Port Strong. Everyone. The chamber actually just finished a T-shirt campaign where it was we are Port Strong, and so we want to keep on with that as well.
That's an interesting point, and I think one of the positive outcomes of this pandemic experience for all of us, you may be right, it may be a reminder and a renewal to support the business in your own backyard. Good point. Joe, you were on the program about a year ago. We ran out of time, and we did not have the opportunity for you to tell us your 3 wishes back then for the Farmingdale Chamber. So I'll paint a picture. Let's say you're at Republic Airport. You're checking on some flight lessons, and just lying there on the tarmac is a genie in a bottle waiting to grant you 3 wishes. What you got?
Well, number one, I'd like to see Shop Local really done on a little bit more of a regional approach. I'd like to see some of the chambers kind of join up and contribute matching funds, and maybe have a Shop Local campaign that gets a little more bang for its buck. I know we all do our Shop Local stuff, and it's important, but I got to tell you, for a lot of our members who sold many of the same items that Home Depot, Lowe's, and Target was selling during those first 3 months of the shutdown, watching Home Depot sell out of patio furniture while you're paying interest on your inventory, I'd really like to see a cultural shift occur coming out of COVID, where we really do seek out and look for small, locally owned businesses for people to shop at. So hopefully that sticks. Number 2, I'd really like to see some of those SBA loans converted either to lower interest rates or to grants. I know a lot of our members, especially our members with the most overhead, took on a lot of new debt using the SBA, and thank God it was there. It's why they were able to reopen and stay open. But when you hear the state and the city saying they can't borrow money for operating expenses, but yet that's exactly what all of our businesses were forced to do, is take a 30-year interest-bearing loan, to stay open. That's going to take 30 years of payments to make up for 3 months of lost revenue. So I hope there's some additional relief that comes from that. And my last wish is, until this is over, I don't want to see a drought, but I'd like some dry weather. So much of our outdoor dining, our outdoor shopping, our outdoor events, children's programs rely on not having rain and not having extreme weather. So hopefully they can string enough days, especially on the weekends, to stay at least at a break-even point, if not profitable. So there you go. I had the benefit of going last. Thank you.
One, I'd like to add to that. Not only dry weather, but how about like long run of mild weather? Mm-hmm. So the restaurants can keep offering the outdoor dining. All right, so 3 chambers, 9 wishes. I hope for your sake they all come true. When we come back, it's time for Ask a Leader, or I'm going to stop asking the questions. I'm going to let each one of you take the mic. You're listening to Chamber Chatter on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. Okay, we're back. I'm Mark Snider, and this is Chamber Chatter on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. Chamber Chatter, it's a monthly roundtable discussion with today's Long Island business leaders and has been underwritten by MapTunes, Long Island Chamber Maps. The 3 leaders with me today: Debbie Greco, newly anointed president of the Port Washington Chamber of Commerce; Joe Garcia, president of the Farmingdale Chamber; and Brian Croutier, president of the Rockville Center Chamber. Now, prior to coming on the air, I asked each one of my 3 guests today to think of something they'd like to ask the other community leaders here with me today. Joe, I'm going to start with you. Any question for one or both of the chamber presidents appearing on the program?
Yeah, so in Rockville Center, what have you guys been doing to try to create more space for outdoor dining, if anything? Have you found any good solutions for that?
A lot of what we've done in working with the mayor's office is to make it as feasible as possible to let the restaurants put up tents outside, the businesses in the back. One of the issues in Rockville Center is, a lot of people want the streets closed, but it's very difficult for us to do that because we have county roads that we can't close as the village, and we have the buses that run through town. So it's kind of fragmented for us. So the mayor and the chamber have worked very hard with the businesses to figure out ways to get permits done so that they can use as much space outside as possible. And it's worked pretty well. Some of the business owners, immediately had their plans ready, and some of them were waiting to see if there were certain guidelines they had to adhere to. But it's really more telling the business owners, come to us with your plan, and then we can figure out, is there any type of fire hazard or any type of issue with that? So really, it's working very closely between the chamber, the mayor's office, the building department, and the business owners themselves. And I think that everyone has done a really remarkable job of trying to get them open and to make them as profitable as can be, because obviously, 50% capacity, it's very difficult to survive. And they've all really done a great job. I've been into, I'll take Monahan's, for instance. Niall created, I was in there during the peak of this, and he was already building out and redoing his entire floor plan. And he now has an outdoor seating area. MacArthur Park, same thing. They have on the side of the building, they set up a whole thing for takeout. Casey's Rooftop, was there the other night. They did a great job setting up so that the tables are, the correct distance apart. And so all these businesses are really doing a great job working with the mayor's office and adhering and making sure that they're doing this the best way possible. So hope that answers the question.
Joe, and I don't want to paint a picture that Farmingdale is only about Main Street because you got restaurants all over
Correct.
town, but you do have the luxury and have been able to shut down Main Street because it's a village street, correct?
Well, no, it actually got very complicated post-COVID. So, yeah, like you mentioned, our restaurants not in our downtown area, they have the benefit of parking lots and or grassy areas. So they've been able to make accommodations, and the town of Oyster Bay has been really great. The village of Farmingdale came out with that plan, and we got a lot of press for it to close down Main Street to expand our dining options. But the village doesn't own Main Street. It's actually a county road. And to close the county road,
Did
they
not know
added
that.
some, yep. It was always easy. You just said you wanted to do it and you did it. But post-COVID, they have a new permitting process for closing down Main Street, which includes a sign-off by the police department. And we all know over the last couple months, they've been pulled in a lot of different directions with operations needed for protest and multiple areas, other towns looking to have road closures, and they don't have the manpower, or at least weren't willing to allocate it to closing down Main Street. So as of today, we've not yet had Main Street closed. There are plans in the works to try to do it. Once we got to 50% dining, however, it removes some of the pressure to close down Main Street because we have pretty wide sidewalks, and restaurants were able to use their sidewalk areas and utilize the loading zones behind their restaurants so that it's on their own property. And with that plus the 50% occupancy inside, they've been okay. Also, when you got into the SLA, the State Liquor Authority rules for outdoor dining, they were just completely impossible, frankly, to follow because they weren't as clear as they thought they were. And there's been some real challenges on both those fronts. So as of now, we have not had Main Street closed.
So you bring up a good point. I mean, the restaurants on 110, New Highway, Hempstead Turnpike, Melville Road, you're right. They all have parking lots. They've got grassy areas. I know exactly what you're talking about, and they don't have that issue. Boy, I didn't realize you weren't able to close down Main Street. How about you, Debbie? You able to close down the roads in your community?
Well, we can close parts of Main Street in Port Washington is a town road, the town of North Hempstead. So, and then we're working with the town on this program, but it would be block by block. Obviously, we're actually having a meeting tomorrow or Wednesday about it. So obviously the police have to be involved, but if it's just a section and it's just once a week and, I'm sorry, I don't know who brought up, I think Joe brought up the issue of the county buses. They go down Main Street also. So, but thinking they'll have to be sure that they only close off blocks where the bus would be able to reroute itself or just around like another block or two. So that would work. But the issue is that also, Port's a really old town. We were founded in 1600, so it doesn't have a lot of those like back parking lot areas or back, because a lot of houses were built behind them. So, there've been some, like there's an Irish pub that took over like an alley that's just several doors down and put up these beautiful, umbrellas and tents. It actually looks so quaint. You hope that it stays open forever like that. And then they've used their back, but there are a lot of places that don't have that kind of access. So it's kind of done on a case by case basis. I have to say that also when the permitting process began from the town for businesses before they were allowed to open inside was a little cumbersome. One of the restaurants commented saying, great, I can put my tables out there, but I have to apply for an outdoor liquor permit. So, there've been a lot of like fits and starts through the way. I have to say also, like regarding the indoor eating, some people are okay with it, but there's still a lot of people I'm hearing that are not comfortable taking their mask off and eating inside. So, it's a process, and it'll take a while to get through that. So it's, for restaurants, but then for other businesses, they've been, people can go into the stores a few at a time. So I think they're starting they're coming along. Everything's moving forward. The restaurants have the biggest challenge for sure, because you can't wear a mask when you eat and so on. But
hey, listen, we're all learning as we go here.
right.
Brian, how about you? A question for one or both of our presidents with us today?
Sure. As I mentioned, we have events coming up in September. And so my question for both of you is, do you guys, do the two of you have events that your chamber runs, and are you looking to continue and follow through this year with those events?
So this is Joe Garcia. Yeah, we've been for the last month and a half having we do our lunch networking meetings. Our general meeting was always a lunch. We've been having those every 2 weeks as tailgate meetings. So we pre-order through the restaurant, through a website. They pay their lunch fee. They order their food special for them. It gets delivered to the restaurant's parking lot, and people bring a chair or eat out of their trunk. And those have been pretty well attended. I mean, we have 25 people at each one of those, and it's been kind of hot. So we've been doing them in the evening. So we're planning on continuing that. And we're also working on right now a breakfast one with the heat, maybe for the first week of August, where we're going to meet at Bethpage State Park, have one of our members deliver a bagged breakfast essentially, and do the trunk networking. And they have some walking trails there. So we're going to have a networking, hike. Feel free to leave if you want, or if you're comfortable taking a hike with somebody and talking some business. So we're trying to find some ways to have the events we can have. We're not sure our parades will happen. Certainly Music on Main didn't happen. So we're focusing on a few things that we can do. And I'm happy to hear if Debbie has any other ideas she's working on.
No, we have Harborfest in June. Is the chamber's largest fundraiser. Unfortunately, we couldn't conduct that. We have also usually have Pride in Port. It falls around the high school football homecoming game. So this year it's supposed to be in September. Obviously, we're not doing the whole thing. It's normally a parade, the football game. There's a big dinner dance at night. But we did decide that we can't even do a parade, and we were having our veterans in the community as our grand marshals. So what we've decided to do instead is have like a car parade where they're all in cars, and we let everyone know, and everyone comes out and cheers them on and so on. So that's kind of as much as we can do as far as that's concerned. But it's just this is a separate thing though. We've had our chamber meetings. We have them on Zoom, and it tends to be, because we have them open to anyone who wants to come, but it tends to be just some of the board members. Our chamber meetings have become much more productive because they're on Zoom. We're having a lot of brainstorming sessions and so on. But but as far as events, that would be the only event that the chamber's involved with. We do a Port Holiday Magic the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So hopefully we'll still be, it's mainly outdoors anyway, but it involves inside business stores. So hopefully we'll be able to conduct that one also. But that's really kind of it.
Debbie, you're the third person in probably the last 2 weeks that have mentioned that their organization is more productive now that they're doing their meetings on Zoom. So you're spot on about that.
Yeah.
And then we come to you. You're new. You've got a couple of experienced veteran presidents in front of you here. Anything for them?
It's not a specific question about that, but Joe, you brought up like the regional shop local. I think it's fantastic because we all operate in isolation, and there's no, we've done cross promotions with our business improvement district, but to do it across various chambers is such a smart thing that I would really like to, and I'm not, like Mitch was very involved with the Nassau County Council of Chambers, and I have never, other than going to the annual, awards breakfast, I'm not involved at all, and I don't really know if I want to be. But no offense to them at all. It just, I'm also on a board of another organization too. But I think that it would be great if some, some more, it's multiple chambers got together and brainstormed what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and if we can do, more of the joint meetings, because we're the Port Chamber, we haven't been financially, when things go right, like when we have Harbor Fest, we do a Super Bowl where we get restaurants that donate soup and people pay, and it's so successful that it gets so crowded that we can't let more people in. So those things are all wonderful, but I just feel like there's more things that we want to do. Actually, I'm sorry, I do have one thing, is we don't specifically, while we support every business, regardless of what kind of minority they're part of or not, or female owned, but are you doing anything specific, not just for the Black Lives Matter, but that kind of gave us the thought that we should be doing things. And we're planning on, updating our website and putting some helpful links and things like that. Is there anything that you guys are doing that responds to, to me, it's minority businesses, not just Black, like not just African-American owned business, but all minority business.
So much like you, it sounds like over the last 8 weeks, I suppose it is, it sort of came more to the forefront. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, I think we were always fair, but I think now that's not enough. I think you need to have an outreach going forward. And no, we don't have any great ideas, unfortunately, on how to do that. We're kicking around some things. I actually reached out to State Senator Kevin Thomas's office to see if the state had any resources on how chambers could make better connections with business owners of color or communities of color or whatever. What could we do to help foster entrepreneurship amongst populations that are underrepresented? And I don't think they had a silver bullet either, but they said they'd follow up. So I don't know if Rockville Senator Brian, have you had anything?
So my one thought on that, and I haven't yet, but it is on the list of things to do, is I was planning, and I did talk to Pat Morris about this. Pat Morris runs the Martin Luther King Center down in town, and so I mentioned to him that there could be a way for us to set something up with Pat and the Martin Luther King Center and kind of introduce the youth to business owners so that they have a better understanding of how does it work and what could you possibly, put the idea in the young kids' heads that, hey, if you want to own a business, you can own a business, right? Anyone can do anything. But we have to get that message out to everyone.
All right, folks, good stuff. Special thanks to my three guests today. You heard from Debbie Greco. She's the president of the Port Washington Chamber of Commerce. Joe Garcia, back on the program again, president of the Farmingdale Chamber. And Brian Croutier, calling in from his car. Thank you, Brian. I know you're going through some difficult times right now. Brian's the president of the Rockville Center Chamber of Commerce. You've been listening to Chamber Chatter on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. Chamber Chatter has been underwritten by MapTunes, Long Island Chamber Maps. As a reminder, Chamber Chatter is also available as a podcast. You can visit WCWP.org/Chamber Chatter. Special thanks to my good friend, station manager, and engineer throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, Dan Cox. My name is Mark Snider. Have a nice weekend. Stick around for Project Independence and You. It's coming up next.